Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Lloyd's ASMR. For tonight's episode, we are going to be diving into another true crime. In this case, a missing person. Now, before we start diving into the whole background, I'd like to show you the missing persons flyer. I always like to start it off that way. That way, if any of you out there, have any information, have seen this individual, then by all means, please call the number on the flyer. But here we have, let me get it into, there you are, okay, Amy Lynn Bradley. Now, I'll let this sit here for a couple minutes, a couple seconds, that way you can all pause and read at your own convenience. Okay. Let's take a look at what the flyer says. Okay, so Amy Lynn Bradley. Date of birth, May 12th, 1974. Short brown hair. 5 foot 6 inches. She is a female, born in Petersburg, Virginia, has green eyes, weighs approximately 120 pounds, and is Caucasian. Remarks. Bradley has the following tattoos: a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball on her shoulder, the sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, and a gecko lizard on her navel. She also has a navel ring. Let's see, details. Amy Lynn Bradley, while on a family cruise to the Caribbean, went missing from the Royal Caribbean International Cruise Line's ship, Rhapsody of the Seas, on Saturday, March 21st, 1998. The vessel departed San Juan, Puerto Rico, and traveled to its first port of call, the island of Aruba. On Monday, March 23rd, 1998, Rhapsody of the Seas departed Aruba and was traveling in international waters to its next island port of Curaçao, Netherlands, Antilles. During the early morning hours of Tuesday, March 24th, 1998, Amy Lynn Bradley went missing. The vessel later departed Curaçao and continued onto the island of St. Martin and further traveled to St. Thomas, United States Virgin Islands, before returning to San Juan, Puerto Rico on Saturday, March 28th, 1998. Let's see here. If you have any information concerning the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, please contact your local FBI office or the nearest American embassy or consulate. deeper into this disappearance, the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. Alright, so she was a 23-year-old American woman who disappeared from the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas while en route to Curacao. Now this here is the cruise ship that she was on, the Royal Caribbean Rhapsody of the Seas. Quite a large vessel. A graduate of Longwood University, Bradley disappeared without a trace and remains missing. Regarded as one of the most high-profile unsolved missing person cases at sea, Bradley's disappearance has received international attention. After dancing until the early hours of the morning, the ship's keycard lock system recorded Bradley returning to her cabin at 3:40 a.m. Her father, Ron, awoke around 5:30 a.m. and saw her asleep on a deck chair on the balcony. When she was no longer there at 6 a.m., the family alerted ship security and authorities. The Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search of the surrounding waters and cruise line routes, but found no evidence. Early theories suggested she may have fallen overboard or passed by other means, though no physical evidence found to date supports either scenario. In the years since her disappearance, there have been multiple reported sightings of Bradley in Curacao, Barbados, and San Francisco. While none have been corroborated, they have fueled speculation that she may have been abducted or trafficked. The case has been featured on Dr. Phil, America's Most Wanted, and other investigative programs. In July of 2025, Netflix released a 3-part documentary series titled Amy Bradley is Missing, revisiting the circumstances of her disappearance and the unresolved questions in the case. Her case is still unsolved, as she was declared legally dead in absentia on March 24th, 2010. Her legal status was changed despite the fact no body was ever recovered and no definitive conclusion was reached regarding her fate. Prior to the disappearance, Ron won an all-expenses-paid family cruise from his employer, and Bradley joined her family on the Royal Caribbean International cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas, en route to Curacao, a Dutch Caribbean island under the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Bradley had a fear of heights and was initially apprehensive about the cruise due to the size of the ship and being out in the open ocean, but was excited for the trip, as Brad had returned home from college and would be joining the family. Bradley had a full-time job at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, but had reduced her hours and was planning to start a new job at a computer consulting firm on her return from the cruise. On March 21st, 1998, Bradley and her family boarded the ship. On March 23rd, Bradley and her brother Brad stayed up late dancing and drinking alcohol with the ship's band, Blue Orchid, at a disco party on the 9th floor deck. One of the band members, Alistair Yellow Douglas, was seen drinking and dancing with Bradley that night, but claimed that he left the party at around 1 a.m. Videographer Chris Fenwick captured Bradley and Douglas dancing. After a couple of hours, Brad returned to his family's cabin on the 8th deck. The ship's computerized key card lock system recorded that Brad entered his cabin at 3:35 a.m. Amy Bradley followed 5 minutes later. Brad reported that he and his sister sat on the suite's balcony and talked before he went to sleep. Amy is believed to have stayed awake a while longer. The disappearance. Between 5:15 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. on March 24th, Ron awoke and checked on his children, seeing that Bradley was asleep on the lounge chair of their cabin's balcony. Ron told local newspapers, "I could see Amy's legs from her hips down. I dozed back off to sleep. The balcony door was closed because if it hadn't been closed, I would have gotten up and closed it." However, other reports indicated that the balcony door was open at the time. When he got up at 6 a.m., however, Bradley was gone, along with her cigarettes and lighter. He later said, "I left to try and go up and find her. When I couldn't find her, I didn't really know what to think, because it was very much unlike Amy to leave and not tell us where she was going." After Ron searched the common areas of the ship, he woke up the rest of the family and told them at 6:30 a.m. that Amy was missing. On the morning of the disappearance, 3 witnesses claimed to have seen Bradley on the upper deck with Alistair Douglas between 5:30 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. They also testified to seeing Douglas hand Bradley a drink containing dark liquid. They claimed Bradley and Douglas arrived in the elevator at the same time, and that Douglas was then seen leaving the upper deck alone shortly after 6 a.m. The search and investigation. Bradley's family immediately reported her disappearance to the onboard crew and pleaded with the crew members to keep the 2,000 passengers from disembarking the cruise and to make an announcement to assist in finding Bradley. However, the team at the purser's office informed them that it was too early a ship-wide announcement. The crew agreed to issue an announcement at 7:50 a.m. after a majority of the passengers had left the ship, announcing, "Will Amy Bradley please come to the purser's desk?" Between 12:15 p.m. and 1 p.m., the cruise staff searched through the ship but could not find Bradley. The delay in launching an immediate search has been called a mistake that could have hurt chances of finding Bradley. Brad recalled that Douglas came up to him shortly after Bradley disappeared and said, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister." No announcement had been made by that time, and Brad said the timing of the conversation was suspicious. The FBI interviewed Douglas soon after and gave him a polygraph test, which a Royal Caribbean spokesperson reported that he passed. Ron said that Douglas came out of the interview smiling, with his thumbs up to his band members like, "Everything's cool." "I knew what was going on. I knew he had been with Amy." Douglas denied knowing anything about Bradley's disappearance. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search that ended on March 27th. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines chartered a boat to continue looking for her. The Coast Guard used 3 helicopters and a radar plane to assist in the search. Initially, the authorities suspected that Bradley had either fallen overboard or passed by other means. However, investigators said that there is no evidence that Amy, a trained lifeguard, fell overboard, was pushed, or poisoned, or anything else. Possible sightings. 1 month after Bradley's disappearance, her family traveled to Curacao and were approached by a cab driver who claimed to have seen Bradley while the ship was docking on March 24th. He said Bradley was running through the parking lot in search of a phone. He stated that he remembered her green eyes, which were described in the reward poster. The witness also claimed to have seen Bradley in other locations on the island. The cab driver's claims were never corroborated by authorities. In August 1998, 2 Canadian scuba divers claimed to have seen a woman they believed to be Bradley on a popular Curacao diving beach known as Playa Porto Marie. Witness David Carmichael claimed that a woman matching Bradley's description was in the presence of 2 aggressive men, one reportedly fitting Douglas's description. The witness yelled out to a friend asking if he had a piece of his dive gear. The woman, believed to be Bradley, upon hearing the man speaking English, reportedly spun around and came back towards him. The witness then claimed that the man resembling Douglas came into his field of vision and motioned the woman away to the beach's bar. Carmichael claims the woman would occasionally look at him and then look down, appearing to try to subtly communicate with him. The witnesses were 2 feet away from the woman and accurately described Bradley's eyes and tattoos. Carmichael recognized Bradley after seeing her photo on America's Most Wanted and stated, "I am haunted by that encounter with Amy. I know it was her." He later phoned Bradley's father and flew to Virginia to meet the Bradley family. The FBI investigated the reported sighting, but were unable to corroborate the claims. U.S. Navy Petty Officer William Hefner claimed to have encountered a woman claiming to be Amy Bradley at a brothel in Curacao in January 1999. Hefner described being seated in the bar area when a Caucasian woman approached him, identifying herself as Amy Bradley and pleading for assistance. According to Hefner, she told him she was being held against her will. Hefner said the woman explained her situation, telling him that she had been on a cruise, had disembarked to seek drugs, and was now trapped in the establishment. After retiring from the Navy, Hefner reached out to the Bradley family in May 2002, explaining that he initially refrained from reporting the incident due to concerns for his military career related to his presence in a brothel. He expressed conviction that the woman he encountered was indeed Amy Bradley. The FBI subsequently investigated these claims. However, they discovered that the brothel had burnt down, and no substantial evidence was found to support Hefner's assertions. Later developments. In the fall of 1999, Bradley's parents received an email from a man named Frank Jones. Jones told the family that he was a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer with a team of experienced soldiers who might be able to rescue Bradley. Jones had claimed that his team had seen Bradley being held by heavily armed Colombian personnel in a housing complex surrounded by barbed wire. The team also gave an accurate description of Bradley's tattoos and sang the lullaby that Bradley's mother used to sing to her. Over the next few months, Jones would feed news to the family and provided reports on sightings of their daughter. When Jones told them they were going to attempt a rescue, he added that more funds were needed. The Bradleys sent Jones a total of $210,000 to fund the setup for the search and had expected a call from Jones and his team for the results of the rescue mission that never came. Jones had made the story up and had tried to scam the Bradleys of money. In February 2002, federal prosecutors in Richmond charged him with defrauding the Bradleys of $24,444 and the National Missing Children's Organization of $186,416. April 2003, witnesses reported reported seeing a woman matching Bradley's description in San Francisco, California, watching a street musician in the company of two men. The witnesses asserted they immediately recognized the woman as Bradley. Upon realizing they had been identified, the two men reportedly seized her and fled the scene. The woman allegedly cast a pleading look to the witnesses as she was being taken away. FBI sketches were released of the men who were believed to be with Bradley at the time. I unfortunately do not have those sketches, but I'm sure you can find them on the internet somewhere. In March 2005, a witness named Judy Maurer claimed to have seen Bradley in a department store restroom in Bridgetown, Barbados. Maurer said she was using the restroom when a woman entered, accompanied by four men who were discussing what sounded like an illegal deal. Maurer said the woman at one point asked the men if they could stop and see the children. It is unknown what children were being referred to. Maurer claims at that point the men left the restroom and she exited the stall and spoke to the woman. She said she believed the woman said she was from West Virginia and softly said her name was Amy. Maurer called authorities and they created composite sketches of men and the woman based on her account. Again, I don't have those. Bradley's parents appeared on the November 17, 2005 episode of Dr. Phil. During that episode, an image of a scantily clad woman resembling Bradley that had been emailed to her parents was shown on the program, suggesting that she could have been trafficked into sexual slavery. Two photographs were discovered online by a member of an organization that attempts to track victims on sites that feature sex workers. The woman in the photo has been said to appear distraught and was a sex worker known as Joss. The authenticity of the photographs could not be determined by the FBI Special Agent Aaron Sheridan. Well, she stated, "We did follow that lead. The difficult part is back then information such as that or pictures such as that, you cannot tell when they're altered." A man who later worked with the FBI performed facial comparison, and his opinion was that the photographs were that of Bradley. On November 12, 2010, a human jawbone was discovered on a beach in Aruba. Initially, it was thought to be the jawbone of another missing person, Natalie Holloway. But testing determined that it did not belong to her. No DNA or other testing was done that could have established a connection to Bradley, although the remains were said to be likely from a Caucasian woman. Bradley was declared legally dead on March 24, 2010, 12 years after the disappearance, with no witnesses and no body found. Theories and speculations. The There are several theories regarding what could have happened to Bradley. One of the most popular theories was that she was kidnapped and sold into the illegal human trafficking industry in the Caribbean. This was based on the account of Hefner and the photo that was emailed to the Bradley family in 2005. This theory also includes suspicions of the ship's band members on the night of Bradley's disappearance and conflicts between the story that bass player Douglas gave to authorities compared to what was seen on CCTV footage. Claims have also been made that a waiter on the ship could have been involved in Bradley's disappearance. Throughout the night, Bradley's family was approached by the waiter, asking to pass on a note to Bradley for him, involving an invitation for her to go drinking with him once they reached shore. In addition, the professional photographer had printed out all photos taken throughout the cruise to sell at a stall, but the family could not find any of Bradley's photos. This made the family believe that the photos had been removed by someone. Another theory authorities considered was that Bradley was thrown overboard. However, the only evidence supporting this is the discovery of a jawbone which washed ashore on a beach in Aruba. Bradley falling overboard is another theory, as initially suggested by the authorities. On November 16, 1998, FBI Special Agent James Weber stated, "We've pursued every angle, from whether there was foul play, death, or accident, and we have basically gotten nowhere." Bradley's case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and the television show Disappeared. Her case was also the subject of episode 59 of the Case File podcast, episode 647 of Generation Y podcast, and the podcast Crime Junkie and the Casual Criminalist. On July 16, 2025, a three-part documentary series titled Amy Bradley is Missing was released on Netflix. The Netflix series was nominated for the 2026 GLAAD Award. Renewed attention was paid to her case after the disappearance of Natalie Holloway in 2005. And on July 27, 2025, podcast host Ethan Klein announced on the H3 podcast that he would offer $1 million reward for any information or actions leading to Bradley being safely returned home. The FBI is currently offering a reward of up to $25,000 for any information that could potentially lead to finding Bradley or leading to their arrest and conviction of person or persons responsible for her disappearance. Again, here is a photo of Amy Lynn Bradley around the time of her disappearance. And these are age progression photographs. And if any of you know anything, please contact the appropriate authorities and get Amy home. I hope that you all enjoyed this video and you could find it relaxing. And I hope that maybe one of you out there may be able to help with this case. I hope that maybe one of you out there knows somebody who's seen her. Maybe you yourself have seen her. Something. Alright. Well, until next time, this is Lloyd's ASMR signing off.